Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, new protest over migrant detention centers. A demonstration is planned for tonight in San Ysidro as new details emerge on family separations. Waiting for asylum. The list to get into the U.S. is growing. How people from around the world are now waiting up to 9 months in Tijuana.
We were criminals. We were evil. We were defined as crimes. We can be arrested at any given point.
This weekend, San Diego Pride celebrates the spirit of Stonewall. Hear the story of a local man who was there 50 years ago.
Oh, we don't go near El Cajon and Lakeside or Santee. Like, they had never been out here. You know what I mean? La Mesa, maybe.
And KPBS talks to people who call East County home for the return of our Where I Come From series. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening. It's Friday, July 12th. Thanks for joining us. I'm Ebony Monet. Emotional testimony in Washington today over migrant detention centers. Democratic lawmakers accuse the Trump administration of cruelty, and the former director of ICE forcefully fired back.
This is a manufactured crisis because there is no need for us to do this. There's no need for us to overcrowd and to detain and under-resource. There is no need for us to arrest innocent people and treat them no differently than criminals when they are pursuing their basic human rights.
Let me explain to you why I'm sitting here so frustrated. Because I'm the only one in this room who's wore a green uniform and been on that line. I'm the only one in this room who found dead aliens on a trail that were abandoned by smugglers who just left them there because they weren't worth any money anymore. I'm the only one in this room that stood in the back of a tractor trailer surrounded by 19 dead aliens, including a 5-year-old little boy that suffocated in death in his father's arms. I was there, and I saw and I smelled it, and it's terrible. And I still have nightmares to this day.
Today's hearing addressed the issue of overcrowding and family separation. And in more than a dozen cases, children aged 2 and younger were separated from their parents for up to 6 months. After visiting San Diego, Vice President Mike Pence was in Texas today to tour a detention facility. The issue is at the heart of protests happening around the country. KPBS reporter Max Ribble-Nadler has more on that from San Ysidro.
We're here in Larson Park where over 30 organizations will be convening over the next few hours to protest conditions in migrant detention facilities, border patrol stations, and immigrant detention facilities across the United States. This is part of a nationwide day of protest under the banner that they've called Close the Camps. As you can see over here, protesters are now getting ready. They're going to march to the border wall in a few hours, and then they're going to hold a vigil. I spoke with one of the organizers of the event, Bertie Gutierrez, who works for the organization Bridge of Love across the border. Here's why she said she helped organize the protest today.
We cannot continue to accept and stay silent while babies are dying, why children are traumatized, why mothers are suffering because their babies were taken away from them. This is inhumane, completely inhumane. It's evil, it's vile, and they're in abhorrent conditions.
The protests follow on the same day as dramatic congressional testimony by members of Congress who went to Border Patrol stations across the border last week, reporting back to Congress what they considered to be extremely unsanitary conditions. All of the protesters I've spoken to today have repeated one demand that the protest is leading towards, and that's to close the camps. In San Ysidro, Max Rivlin-Nadler, KPBS News.
Thousands of asylum seekers continue to arrive in Tijuana every month. They're putting their names on an unofficial list in a notebook kept by the Mexican government. The notebook saves their place in line for the few slots the U.S. makes available each day. It's part of a policy referred to as metering. This week, the list in the book reached more than 9,000 people. It's the highest number ever. And a Tijuana-based legal service organization says the number of people being let into the U.S. has plummeted.
There's only been an average of 3 numbers called every day for the past month. There's been a lot of distress and frustration regarding the metering system.
Legal aides say the wait time for someone added to the list this week is 7 to 9 months. Immigration has dominated the headlines this week. We'll see more this weekend as ICE plans to carry out deportation sweeps in 10 U.S. cities. You can find coverage on all of this at kpbs.org. The spirit of Stonewall is the theme for this year's San Diego Pride celebration. The rally is happening tonight in San Diego. The downtown county administration building will be lit in rainbow colors throughout the weekend. 200,000 people are expected to attend tomorrow's Pride Parade. This is the 50th anniversary of the riots at New York City's Stonewall Inn. KPBS reporter John Carroll talked to a San Diegan who was part of this key movement in the gay rights movement.
The riots at the Stonewall Inn in the Greenwich Village neighborhood started late on a Friday evening, June 28, 1969. Within a couple of hours, Joe Narvid's phone was ringing.
Early in the morning, I'm talking like 4 a.m., from a friend telling us that there was a riot down in the Greenwich Village on Christopher Street, and that we should get down there. And so we did.
Once Narvid got on the scene, the evidence of what had gone down a short time before was obvious.
All I remember seeing is fire, because the police cars, one of the police cars right smack across the street was set on fire and was burning. So that was already a sign of seriousness for us.
Raids on gay bars, though they weren't called gay bars back then, were common. I asked Narvid why the Stonewall patrons reached the end of their rope that night. Narvid says it was primarily the drag queens who'd had enough.
That particular night, the police were extremely physically brutal to them, because one of them talked back and the other one yelled, and then they started hitting them, and that's when it turned into a real riot.
The riots continued for the next 3 days. When things settled down, Narvid says community organizing picked up.
We found out about meetings that were being called to sort of start a formation of doing something about what's going on.
Life for gay men back then was difficult, to say the least.
We were criminals. We were evil. We were defined as crimes. We can be arrested at any given point.
Things were even worse for drag queens. Narvid says that's why they took the lead on that fateful night.
It took the drag queens to do it, because why not? They had nothing to lose. They weren't going to get any better treatment, worse treatment. They were already getting the worst treatment they could get. So why not? Why not stand up for yourself? And they did.
In 1975, Joe Narvid picked up and moved west to San Francisco, where within a few years he would find himself in the middle of another watershed moment for the gay movement. While studying for his doctorate, Narvid worked as an intern for Harvey Milk.
Tell me when you're ready. Tell me ready, and open up the question.
So we set up a committee, of which I was one of the 8 or 10 people who were on the committee, to form a program that would service the gay, lesbian, and trans community with mental health services.
Narvid's primary memory of Milk stems from a meeting where he and a colleague suggested opening a group home for runaway LGBT youth. Milk's sharp political instincts swung into action. He shot down the idea.
Because they'll shut us down in a minute. They'll say we were recruiting young people to be homosexuals. He was right. And that's where Harvey came in, big, way brighter than a lot of us at that time.
All these years later, it's still tough for Narvid to talk about the tragedy that unfolded on November 27, 1978, the day Harvey Milk and San Francisco Mayor George Moscone were gunned down in City Hall.
Market Street was mobbed all the way down to City Hall with candles burning, and Joan Baez was there with her singing,
Now 77 years old, Joe Narvid is still working. He's a clinician at San Diego's Naval Medical Center. As much progress as the movement for equal rights has made, Narvid is concerned, specifically for transgender members of the military.
What just happened to the transgender sailors and Marines and soldiers should not have happened and could not have happened, I believe, 5 years ago.
On the eve of San Diego's Pride Parade, Narvid's advice for younger members of the LGBTQ community?
I don't want to say be scared. I want to say be cautious.
Advice for today from someone who was there back then. John Carroll, KPBS News.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, Secretary of Labor Acosta is out amid criticism of how he handled a child sex crime case as a prosecutor. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
200 people are set to lose their jobs now that San Diego-based South Pacific Tuna says it's downsizing. The company blames U.S. regulations for cutting into profits. We'll talk about the implications of that scale down and more for today's Friday Business Report with Miro Kopik with SDSU and Bottom Line Marketing. Welcome, Miro.
Thanks, Ebony.
So South Pacific Tuna is a major player in the industry. What will this proposed scale back mean?
Well, it's important to know that they're just selling these boats to other tuna operations from other countries like China, the Philippines, and South Korea. So the amount of tuna that's going to be fished is going to be the same, but it still takes 70,000 tons of U.S. fish tuna out of the market. One of the issues that they say is government regulations. And what these regulations do, they're focused on sustainability and labor practices. A lot of countries don't follow the same rules. Even though there's international treaties, they don't follow the same rules. U.S. observers on these tuna boats will find tuna fishermen. The same observers on the other boats may not do that for their respective countries. But the real issue in this case is not just the regulatory side, which is an impact, but it's the economic. So there's 4 things that have happened in the last couple of years that really made it hard for tuna fishermen to make money. First of all, the price of tuna has gone down by 50% per pound. So that makes it very hard if your labor costs are high when the price per pound goes down that far. Second, fuel costs have gone up substantially. Third, the fees to fish in really good waters, especially in the South Pacific, have gone up a lot. Everyone has to pay those fees regardless. And the last thing is our competitors, the competitors to South Pacific Tuna, they have newer boats. They have better fuel efficiency, more capacity for what they carry, for the tuna they carry. So it makes it very hard for tuna operators to be successful in this market, which is very sad.
Now, moving on, next up, Jack in the Box just this week completed a $1.3 billion refinancing. Now, company leaders say they're no longer looking for a new buyer. But, Miro, what's the overall status of the company's restructuring?
Well, I think they're, in this case, they're more just buying some time. Just a quick recap. Last fall, the franchisees almost unanimously had a vote of no confidence of the CEO, Leonard Coma. At the same time, activist investors led by Jana Partners bought 5% of the company and were going to go into a proxy takeover fight. And so what Jack in the Box management did is they said, look, we'll do the strategic review, which they completed in the spring, and we'll give Jana Partners 2 board seats on the Jack in the Box board. When they found no buyer, they got this refinancing to kind of retire expensive debt. That leaves them about $300 million for operations, but they haven't decided whether it's going to go to operations to improve marketing or whether they're going to buy back the stock. And the only people who are going to benefit from buying back the stock are Jana Partners if they decide to leave after making some good profits. So right now, the management team is kind of has its work cut out for them in a very competitive quick service market.
Now, sticking with fast food chains, moving on now to McDonald's and Chick-fil-A. McDonald's franchisees have expressed that they want a premium chicken sandwich like Chick-fil-A. And my question to you, with McDonald's being so much bigger than Chick-fil-A with locations across the world, why would franchisees want to follow the lead of Chick-fil-A?
Chick-fil-A has been incredibly successful. You know, starting from a southern base out of Atlanta, they have expanded up the eastern seaboard out on the west coast. There's only 2,000 Chick-fil-A's. There's 14,000 McDonald's restaurants, but every place where McDonald's franchisees are finding Chick-fil-A competition, they're losing the chicken sandwich battle. Chick-fil-A's sandwich is superior. McDonald's just doesn't have a premium chicken sandwich at the same level. They have their chicken sandwich and chicken McNuggets, but that's a major issue. And so franchisees are finally upset at McDonald's. McDonald's has followed a 2-pronged strategy. They've tried to go upscale. They had all these franchisees invest in technology for these new artisan burgers that they discontinued a few months ago. And then at the same time, they did a lot of discounting and took the most profitable item that the franchisees have, which is soda, and made it $1 for each soda regardless, instead of, you know, different prices for different sizes. So franchisees are finally saying, you know what, before Chick-fil-A becomes a real issue, let's address it right now. And so McDonald's is going to launch some new chicken items in the fall, spicy chicken sandwiches and spicy chicken McNuggets, and they're testing a southern chicken sandwich similar to Chick-fil-A, and we'll see how they do. But they're finally listening to the franchisees.
Well, you've made me hungry for lunch, so we'll stop right there. That wraps it up for this week's Friday Business Report. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Ebony.
We take a look at why migrants from Cameroon are stuck in Tijuana and why they are protesting treatment by Mexican officials. Join us for that story and more on the Roundtable tonight at 8:30.
KPBS's Where I Come From series returns tonight with 3 new communities. We're taking a look at El Cajon, Imperial Beach, and Fallbrook. Each Friday, we'll explore what makes these communities different and special. We begin with the story from El Cajon, where people talk about the misconceptions of their city.
I love El Cajon, and they think it's crazy. When it came to like East County, they would be like, oh, we don't go near El Cajon and Lakeside or Santee. Like, they had never been out here. You know what I mean? La Mesa, maybe.
I think they picture East County and like think like a Dust Bowl with like, you know, the cowboys and the cows and the cowpoke. I think that's what people think about us.
You know, I used to be almost embarrassed of being from East County, from El Cajon, talking to all these surfer buddies that live by the beach and everything, like, oh, where are you from? And I'd say, La Mesa, you know, because no one knows any farther east than La Mesa.
I would expect somebody from Point Loma to expect a race war to break out, you know, on 2nd Street any day now.
I do think that the diversity and the ability for people to come together is what I by and large see, right? It's not the 4 or 5 things that you see that happen on the news every night.
The food, I think, is really important to our East County. So like the old Nicolosis, the old restaurants like that, sitting next to Urban Pizza, which is, you know, a bunch of Irish guys, or the Chaldean restaurants and the Chaldean pastry shops and the Mexican food shops and the brand new cafe down the street from me that is a very Mexican-owned traditional restaurant.
If you have more than one friend in East County, they're gonna be of a different ethnicity.
I love that about us. I love that I don't have to go out of El Cajon to get what I want, what I need, what I would crave as far as that. And I think that going to Cajon Valley High School helped with that because I got to know a lot of different people.
I think for people that aren't from East County, they perceive El Cajon in kind of a negative way, where they think first words maybe are low income, Middle Eastern, all refugee kind of like dumping ground for people that are not part of a certain standard. But I think that's almost what makes it the exact opposite. It's really this diversely rich place that people come to understand each other.
So I think that is what I love about El Cajon, what I like about it, what makes us special.
We'd like to hear about what you think of our series, Where I Come From. Go to KPBS's Facebook page and join the conversation. Well, hot weather will continue this weekend. Here's video from Imperial Beach, where there was still some cloud cover today. There's an excessive heat warning for parts of our area through Saturday. Dajia Swad has tonight's forecast.
As we continue through your Friday night, looking at partly cloudy skies here at the coast with a low in the upper 60s, cooling down to 65, in Oceanside, a low of 82 in Borrego Springs and 64 in Mount Laguna, with the better chance to see less cloud cover as you head further inland. As we take you into your Saturday, well, it is going to be comfortably cool at the coast, but as you head further inland, well, that's where the temperatures will continue to be hot in a place like Coachella Valley and points into the deserts of San Diego County. So with that being said, look at that high in Borrego Springs at 114. Ooh, that's a lot of heat. We're topping off at 84 in Mount Laguna, 79 in Oceanside, and in the upper 70s for San Diego with some sun to come throughout your day. Closer to the coast, well, you'll be looking at a bit more cloud cover. Definitely want to keep this in mind. We have an excessive heat warning for Borrego Springs. That's going to last until tomorrow late day. You definitely want to be weather alert and also be on the hydration side. So keep yourself hydrated, wear light colored clothing, and don't be outside for extended periods of time. And definitely be kind. Keep an eye on the children, the elderly, and the pets. Early week, we continue to see that heat. What we will notice through the weekend before we reach early week is the chance for some dry lightning across California due to an upper level trough that will be moving in, and that brings the risk for some fire danger. So something to keep in mind. Temperatures go into the lower 80s for the coast for your Sunday and Monday. Feeling nice for Tuesday. We'll be in the 90s, inland areas, and cooler into Wednesday with mostly sunny skies. And then in the triple digits, once again, some very hot conditions in the deserts. Definitely want to stay hydrated. And if you're out to the mountains through this weekend and early week, temperatures in the 80s. Reporting for KPBS News, I'm your meteorologist, Dajia Swan. Back to you.
The Tale of Despero has been told as an award-winning book, an animated film, and now it's coming to San Diego's Old Globe Theater. KPBS arts reporter Beth Accomando explains how cardboard and flashlights are bringing the adventures of a heroic mouse to life.
In 2008, Universal Pictures brought The Tale of Despero to cinematic life with state-of-the-art animation that proves even stories of pure fantasy can be rendered with an air of realism. But Pigpen Theater Company prefers to engage its audience with something less high-tech.
I've got an idea.
You're going to see us pull out a bed sheet and a cardboard puppet and light it, and you'll understand immediately what's happening.
Arya Shahi is a founding member of Pigpen. He insists there can be emotional depth in things that are anything but realistic.
There's a pact that you make with the audience almost before the show begins, where we just kind of set the stage and then indicate that we're going to ask you to go on an imagination trip with us, because that's what we did kind of coming up as a company. Is we couldn't rely on the CGI budget. We could rely on bed sheets.
But that low-tech approach creates a magic unique to theater, says fellow Pigpen founder Brian Melia.
Part of the fun of using puppets is to surprise the audience and making them go, oh shoot, by the end of the show, like I actually am connected to this thing that I didn't know was gonna, make me feel this way.
The challenge in adapting The Tale of Despero to the stage was to get the audience to connect with a mouse and a rat as main characters.
How do you do not only animals, which we've done before, but particularly small animals, animals that in life probably aren't big enough to carry the weight of an emotional moment on stage?
The solution Shahi and his Pigpen collaborators came up with involved mixing their favorite stage inventions with some new elements.
We're using three-dimensional puppets that are kind of a little bit larger than life so you can see them, but that really indicate like how small these characters are. We're using actors that just portray the characters without any kind of costume pieces or anything.
I'm just a mouse. I'm not even a good mouse.
Well, what does a good mouse do?
They sniff around for crumbs, and they scurry.
Good. I'm looking at you right now, and let me tell thee something. Thou art no scurrier. Thou hast a noble carriage.
Actress Betsy Morgan is new to Pigpen's style of theater and enjoyed the challenge of interacting with a rodent puppet in her hand.
It ain't exactly what I had in mind when I dreamed of living in the castle.
I'm playing one character, and then I'm trying to keep the life of the puppet, which is a totally different being, alive. So for me, it was always about making sure that that puppet character was independent and living and breathing while I was singing as the other character. So it's a little bit of like rubbing your stomach and tapping your head at the same time.
Melia plays the narrator who helps pull the audience into the world of Despero.
I just want me hanky back. If you promise to bring it back to me, I'll help you get back upstairs.
How?
Part of the appeal of doing this story was the idea that in the book it invites you into the story. It's a very personal relationship that you have with the voice of the book, the narrator. And we saw that as a quick link to the way that in theater the invitation to the audience to contribute their imaginations is as important as us contributing our imaginations.
Morgan sees it as an invitation for the audience to be creative with the artists on stage.
We do this show that looks very technically beautiful, but when you get down to it, because of the brilliance of our designers, Jason and Isabella, we have a show that is not very technically advanced. It's basically all we're working with are puppets, which are made buy cardboard cutouts and sheets. Like, these are all very homemade things, and I think that that's inspiring as an audience member to come and watch something that you can do at home. This, I mean, if I were a kid coming to see this production, I would most certainly go home and start making puppets.
The charm of this production stems from its sincere investment in the story and its do-it-yourself ingenuity that never tries to hide the fact that sometimes it's just a flashlight, a bedsheet, and a piece of cardboard.
You'll understand how we're doing these things, and we are doing all of them, but you'll find moments where hopefully there will be a spark of wonder and joy because you don't know how we're doing it, but you know that there's nothing helping us.
No green screen, no CGI, no D-box vibrating seats. Just artists asking audiences to take a leap of faith and seeing the wondrous places that imagination can take them. Beth Accomando, KPBS News.
The Tale of Despero runs through August 11th at the Old Globe Theater. And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. And we end tonight's show with music from Live at the Belly Up, which airs tonight at 11 right here on KPBS. Thanks for watching. Have a great night.
Weapon rejoice, earth will exalt. Now you come swing back like a catapult. See, and its fullness will bore. He is a help and a shield, a soul yearn for the Lord. Burning, God of Yankov, the blessed stronghold, break down the door. Can't go back no more, wait all night long. Till the early morning, like night watchmen, wait for the Lord. Exaltation, my God of salvation. Feeling the rhythm, filled with jubilation. The Lord's name will be proclaimed. Yama, 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 yo. Exaltation, my God of salvation. Feeling the